the Pennington County Commission meeting to order for the 18th of December. It doesn't look like we have a quorum in the audience. At any rate, we'll proceed.
Can we have a meeting?
Jay isn't even here, but at any rate, as we do the moment of silent reflection, I would urge you to direct your thoughts to the tragedy in Connecticut, and then we'll ask Commissioner Troutman to lead the pledge.
Thank you. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I might, I'd like to ask for just a moment of personal privilege. And I have a little something I'd like to show the members of the commission and anybody else that may be interested.
Granted.
This is a picture of the one of the B-1 bombers that went to Libya about a year ago and bombed Libya, and it took off in a snowstorm and an ice storm. And I received this from the 28th Maintenance Group, and what it says on it is Mr. Ken Davis, MXG, Honorary Commander, 2006-2012. Thank you for your unwavering dedication to the 28th Maintenance Group. Signed, we generate air power. And I thought it was pretty nice. I'd be willing to hang it down here for a while if somebody wants to see it.
Absolutely.
And congratulations to you, Commissioner Davis.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is review and approve the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to make changes to the agenda? If not, the chair would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the agenda as presented, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is the consent agenda. Holly.
Good morning, Commissioners. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today, I have placed the following items for your consideration. To approve the minutes of the regular meeting from December 4th, 2012. To approve the vouchers in the amount of $2,630,137.89. To acknowledge the annexation to the Green Valley Sanitary Sewer District as presented from the auditor. To acknowledge the order for incorporation, to acknowledge the order for organization and incorporation to the Blake Road District as presented from the auditor. Approval of the chairman's signature on the tax deed to transfer ownership of the 40-acre surplus property sold, submitted from the auditor. To recognize the volunteers for the month of November 2012 from the Human Resources. And finally, request for approval to surplus vehicles to be used as trade and authorization to purchase off of the 2013 state bid submitted from the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Holly. Is there anyone who wishes to remove any of the items from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded to pass the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, item 12, the Meade-Pennington County Boundary Project. State your name, please, when you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Don Jarvin, and the Pennington County Rapid City JS Coordinator. I have a short presentation on the boundary between Meade and Pennington counties, the project we're working on now. And I want to talk just a little bit about the history of the boundary and some of the problems that we have with it and some proposed solutions. The boundary for Pennington County was originally established in 1877 by state law. In 1879, Charles Scott, a surveyor, actually set the boundary in the field, setting monuments about roughly every mile. If I get this. We actually have the original survey notes from the state archives, and we've hired Ferber Engineering to take these notes and to locate some monuments in the field. This initial part of the project is really just a scoping part to find out what we need to do. So Ferber has been out in the field, a little bit of shadow in this picture, but this is the corner, the northwestern corner in Pennington County, where it joins the state line. You can see the fence there. That's actually the Wyoming boundary there. Here's a closer view of that. And scribed into that post is Penn for Pennington County on this side of the post. The other side was Lawrence County. And then the left side was the Wyoming state line. The line is defined here as 10 miles north of latitude 44 north, and again was set in 1879. There's a series of monuments that were set. They're not every mile from what the notes say, but generally every mile there was a monument set. The monuments consist of piles of rocks, sometimes a post. Also, during this area for surveying, they used to char wood and then bury that wood because charred wood doesn't rot, and you can go back and find it. So that's what's actually out in the field right now. Now there have been. Here's milepost 2. This one was actually reset by a surveyor, Mr. Goodson, and there are some of these monuments out in the field. Again, part of the project is to find the monuments for starters. So the reason that we're doing this, if we look at, this is over along Nemo Road. If you look at the parcel data sets, our data set, Pennington County, is in yellow. The Meade County data set is in blue. In this particular area near Nemo Road, there's about an 80-foot overlap between the data sets. So we're not really sure where that line should go. Also, if you look at the line, there's sort of a light gray line. That's the line that the feds have that we get from their data set. So we've got these three interacting data sets, the federal, the Pennington, and the Meade lines. Over near Sturgis Road, the data sets between Meade and Pennington are fairly close. They're about 5 to 8 feet off right here. But the federal line is about 60 feet north of what we're showing. So again, we've got this disjoint between the data sets. So we have the straight part of the line goes from the Wyoming boundary to the Cheyenne River. It's about 82, 83 miles, 30 miles of Lawrence County and the rest in between us and Meade. So what we're proposing to do is basically find the monuments in the field. Some of them may have to be reset, and we may not find some of them because they've been destroyed over the decades. But once we find those monuments, then we can get good coordinates on them and basically just type the coordinates into the GIS, and then we'll know where that line is supposed to be. Here's the major problem. This is another completely separate problem. This is the Cheyenne River. By state law, the center of the river is the boundary. That creates some problems. First of all, the river is going to move with just normal accretion, and occasionally it does jump when you get a large loop. Sometimes that loop will cut off and form what's called an oxbow lake. By traditional interpretation of the law, if that happens, then the original channel still is the boundary. Unfortunately, we don't have 120, 130 years worth of data to find out where that is right now. The kind of problem this causes is in about 3 years ago, the Home Stake Mining Company wanted to sell some land that it had where Elk Creek comes into the Cheyenne River. and nobody really knew what county it was in. So the Departments of Equalization actually worked that out among themselves. We got a legal opinion at that time from the state's attorney, and the legal opinion, that the result of it, the final part of it, said that basically the center of the river is the boundary. There are all kinds of other considerations in that, but the state's attorney, lawyer that gave us the opinion, said that it's really never been tested in South Dakota law. So this particular part is going to be a much larger problem. From a data perspective, if indeed, it's determined that the center of the river, wherever it exists at the time, is the boundary, we can handle that from a data side, but it would be much simpler if the boundary was actually set. This is a standard problem that lots of places have. The classic problem of this type is the Rio Grande between Texas and Mexico. Again, the river moved, and finally there was a commission established in the 1800s to set the line, and they actually set monuments and decided the line would be here no matter where the river went. The solution for this may end up being, of course, it has to be researched and figure out, where the line should be according to the current law, and maybe some plats in the meantime. But the solution in this one may actually be go to the legislature and set the line somehow. But anyway, what we expect to do with this project is to determine the straight part of the line and get recommendations on what to do with this part of the line. We expect this to probably be a multi-year project of going out and finding monuments and resetting them over probably 3 or 4 years. So that's the project that we're undertaking. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
What did they do down Yankton? Because I know the Missouri River was doing the same thing between Nebraska and South Dakota, and they resolved that. You know how they did that?
I'm not sure of that one. I know of another, of a related problem. I went to a conference, and the state, some of the state people talked about a problem down there. There was a murder on an island in the Missouri River, and they didn't know what state that was in. So they actually had to go through the same thing, and I know the people that had done the research, they actually went back and looked at all of the information they could find to figure out how the river had moved, and then make a decision on, what state that island was in.
Another one, too.
Yes.
It looks like you're spending $3,500 to do this initial project, the scoping project, and then we're going to probably go out and reset some monuments. How much, who's paying for all this?
It's coming out of the GIS budget. We have a line item for consulting every year. Right now, I think that we have actually 2 separate line items, but it adds up to about $17,000. We expect this to be a multi-year project as we use that line item every year. An initial cost, we haven't gotten a report yet back from Ferber, but we're looking at to actually reset a monument if we have to go that far, of probably about $800. The initial talks that I've had with the Ferber people is that we probably wouldn't set one every mile because if they're lined up properly, which again with the surveying techniques they had back 130 years ago, they actually did very well, but nothing is quite perfect. But if we find that it's fairly straight, we won't have to set monuments every mile. And even if we need to, we'll probably initially just get some of the developed areas like the Sturgis Road and Nema Road. And then they already know that some monuments don't exist. They were never set. There might be they skipped a mile in certain places. Basically, that's the initial plan. We should get the report back in a week or two, and then we'll go from there.
Mr. Chair. Yes. Is Meade County and Lawrence County interested in this project?
We have been working with Meade County on exchanging data. We will actually work with them fairly closely in data exchanges for 911 purposes. The Meade County GIS coordinator is aware of the problem. We've discussed it, and we haven't talked about funding or anything like that with them, but they are aware of it, and we're hoping to work with them on this project.
I would hope that if it's and it looks like there is some real reasons for getting this line established and fixed, that if it's going to cost Pennington County money, that we could look to see if either Meade and or Lawrence would share in that in some sense, because they're going to get a benefit out of it as well.
That's correct, and we have broached the subject at a lower level, but not brought it to their commission yet.
Well, maybe, yeah, and maybe that's what you need to do at some point in time, in conjunction with their staff. Their staff is to make a similar type presentation to both of those commissions, and see if you can get them to help in the funding of it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We've also, in talking with Ferber, we also talked about who uses this line. Actually, Game Fish and Parks uses the line to divide its hunting areas, so they may be interested in the project. And, the feds use this line. BLM specifically, has done surveys of pieces of the line, so we'll be looking at all of those sources eventually.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. Next item is items from the auditor, alcoholic beverage license renewals.
Good morning, Julie
morning.
Pearson, Pennington County Auditor. I'm not sure which list you have first, December 6th or the December 7th memo?
The 6th.
The 6th, okay. This is a public hearing, has been noted for the transfer, renewal, and new license listed on the sheet provided to the board. It has been published and is scheduled for a public hearing on December 18th. The charge for publication is an additional $50 to the fee set by the state. Applications have been attached, and I can read the list, or it is provided in the public packet.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd make a motion to approve the alcohol beverage license applications as presented on all three forms that we have.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Does that motion deny you the opportunity to speak some more?
Yes. I need nothing. Hey, don't be mean, I'm part of your public back here that you need for your quorum.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve all of the alcoholic beverage license renewals that are presented by the auditor. Is there any further discussion from the commission, from the audience? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Y'all have a Merry Christmas.
You too, thank you. Next item is an abatement application from Bank West. Shannon.
There is one abatement application. This comes from my office. It was 1996, a mobile home. It was moved by a dealer to Butte County. We didn't know that it moved. We found out where it went, and taxes were paid in Butte County. Talked to the treasurer and the assessor in Butte County to verify that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I take it then that there was not a moving permit obtained?
Dealers have a
Oh,
standing
that's
moving
right. I
permit.
asked you that last time, and you told me the same thing. But they don't have to do it. Can we get that changed?
If you can, I'd be happy if you would. It's annoying to us because they simply just don't tell us when they move them. All they got to do is just tell us that they moved it. And that doesn't always happen.
Maybe you could talk to a legislator about drafting some legislation. I mean, you understand that statute, and frankly, they could still have their permit, but if you catch them moving without a permit, then we could have some kind of a civil penalty or something on them.
I've talked to sheriff's deputies about that, and they like to tell me that they actually have to catch the mobile home moving down the highway.
Well, but
No, that's
no,
bad.
what I'm what I'm saying is, if the dealer, we know that a dealer moved this, the bank can tell you which dealer moved it.
Oh, the dealer will tell us when we figure it out. And the
Right.
dealer tells us
Well, I have to
that,
figure it out.
well, it's gone. We gotta go looking somewhere. The dealer, though, will say, "We told you," and we don't have anything. There's lots of things with mobile homes. This is one thing I'd like to change. And we work with our Assessors Association in South Dakota to do some of these changes. But there's so many things with mobile homes that are tied in with taxes and warrants, and it's difficult to get any one part changed. This thing is just one irritating thing about mobile homes and assessments.
Well, there may be another avenue. And I'm thinking of the over-width permits that implement dealers get to get on the interstate. And I was part of the process of changing the law so that they can buy a book of tickets. And they simply call the highway patrol and say, I'm going to activate ticket so-and-so, I'll get on at Deadwood Avenue and I'll get off at Wall, and they're clear. So you might pattern your approach, something like that.
We have, the dealer here is particularly annoying to us, and we have called Department of Revenue and Sheriff's Office to complain about a mobile home that moved when we didn't know about it. Department of Revenue can actually cause a lot of grief for a mobile home dealer, but it doesn't cure the problem.
So what's your recommendation on this issue?
Well, the abatement should be approved because the mobile home isn't in the county anymore. It went to another county and paid taxes in another county.
They'd stop.
Do we have a motion?
Not for me.
Abatement as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the abatement. Any further discussion?
I think maybe we need to start doing this like that Dolores Coffin used to do. Vote no. And when you finally get to a point that you don't get a passage vote on it, well, then maybe we can get something done with the legislature.
Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next item, item 15, 4 items. Heidi?
Good morning, Heini Junge, Pennington County Highway Superintendent. I need to hand out a revised award recommendation for the loaders.
Okay.
We're changing it.
Are we changing the award recommendation to different people?
Yes.
Should we do? I don't think we can do that. It's not advertised in the meeting.
We opened bids on December 12th for 2 new loaders, and we received 4 bids, and after reviewing the bids and specifications, I found out after I'd turned this in last Thursday that the one bidder bid a smaller machine, and even though they said they met specifications, they do not. And so I've revised my award recommendation. We had 4 bids. One was from Diesel Machinery for $179,000 for a 2-yard. And the 2-yard from RDO is $128,990. From Sheehan Max Sales, $152,898. And from Titan Machinery of $128,225. For the 2-yard loader, Titan Machinery is a low bidder meeting all specifications, and I would recommend awarding the 2-yard loader to Titan Machinery. The 3-yard loader, we did receive 4 bids. One was from Diesel Machinery for $192,000, RDO Equipment for $103,490, Sheehan Mac Sales for $174,496, and Titan Machinery for $164,425. My first review shows that RDO Equipment was a low bidder, but they did not meet specifications, and they did not note that in their original bid. After talking with RDO Equipment, they bid a smaller machine. It doesn't meet the operating weights. It doesn't meet the minimum static tipping load or the breakout force, which are all critical items for the size loader we'd like to purchase that is going to go to the Hill City area. So based on that information, I did confirm it with RDO Equipment. They said yes, they do not meet specifications. So my recommendation is for the 3-yard loader that it goes to the low bid meeting all specifications, which is Titan Machinery Company in the amount of $164,425.
I have a question. Do we need separate motions for each loader? Or not?
Well, my bids were set up for 2 loaders, but each one had specifications, so I guess I would like to see a motion on each one for the 2-yard and one for the 3-yard.
Any discussion by the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Jay, would you give us your official legal opinion?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I did have a chance to talk to Heine about this late yesterday. And, I knew part of the concern would be changing a recommendation at what would be considered maybe this late stage of the game. However, when you look at it, there's a couple things here. Number one, first of all, I asked Heine, is it that big a deal? If you had a 2-week delay, could you absorb that? And apparently these aren't needed till spring or something.
Correct.
So if you want to push this off 2 weeks for that one item alone that got changed, you're more than welcome to do that, and that's not a big issue. On the other hand, in looking at it, it's on the agenda as a ward recommendation. It generally describes the topic. And in this particular case, Heine did everything that you would be required to do, and there's really no choice but to do what he's doing. So I don't know what a delay would really serve either. In other words, the individual that did not bid it correctly acknowledged that they messed up. You have really no choice but to reject that bid. You look at the next lowest responsible bidder, which is the one that is now in your memo, and you have very little choice but to award that bid. So given those circumstances, I don't know what purpose it would really serve to delay it for 2 more weeks, because we're kind of presenting what you got to do here, and the topic is well addressed and on the agenda, so it's not like there's any surprise in that regard. So from a practical standpoint, I don't see why you couldn't award it today, honestly.
Thank you. Very well clarified.
I'll make a motion to approve the low bid Titan Machinery on a new 2 cubic yard loader.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of the 2-yard loader from Titan Machinery. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 3-yard loader.
I move to approve the awarding of a 3 cubic yard loader to Titan Machinery in the amount of $164,425.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the next item is a new single drum vibratory roller. We opened bids on December 12th. We received 4 bids. One from DMI Machinery in the amount of $140,883. One from RDO Equipment in the amount of $105,500. one from Sheehan Mac Sales in the amount of $127,495, and one from Titan Machinery in the amount of $112,900. And again, in this case, RDO Equipment was the only bidder that bid a machine that did not meet specifications. And in this case, it was the horsepower. My specs asked for at least 148 horsepower. They bid a machine with a 4-cylinder with only 134 horsepower. So it's my recommendation that we award the bid to the low bidder meeting all specifications, which is Titan Machinery Company, in the amount of $110,700 with trade-in.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
that would be my motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, and I have a question. Do you want separate motions for the purchase and the trade-in also?
But I think so. We probably should have a separate motion to declare it surplus for trade, the used machine.
So your motion is to purchase?
Is to purchase, and to the next one will be for the trade-in.
Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, then I would make a motion to declare the 1971 Rego Model 400 with attached serial number as surplus for the purpose of trade-in.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to declare the 1971 Rego surplus. Any further discussion on this item? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the next item is a design build resolution. We've got money budgeted in 2013 to proceed with a new shop facility in New Underwood. Finally get out of that old steel Quonset we have over there. And looking at the type of building we're looking at a pole barn, steel structure type building. If you look at a Morton or a Butler or other type buildings, typically those buildings are pre-designed. They have the footprint. You tell them how big a building you'd like, and then they go in and they already have blueprints on file. The only thing we need to be watchful of is the electrical and the plumbing and the mechanical that goes inside the building. And South Dakota law allows us to do a design build type scenario. The highway department's never done one before, but in this case, the designer and the contractor work hand in hand. It's a process where first we have to advertise for a design build company or firm. Then based on evaluation, we determine which company is qualified to do that. And then once we select the company, then we go into the negotiation phase as far as this is what we want and this is what it's gonna estimated cost. So in order to do that, we have to approve the design build procurement procedures, which I have attached to this. And then if you agree with those procedures, we have to formally adopt the resolution that says we're going to proceed with the design build for this structure. I guess I think it's a very good option. Otherwise, I do have professional engineers on staff, but neither one of those have electrical or mechanical degrees, so they don't feel comfortable designing the electrical part of it. We could probably do the structure, but the structure's typically already designed, so I guess I would ask for commissioners' approval of the design, build, procurement procedures, and approval of the resolution to start the process. And all these steps will be brought back to the board for their approval. And
Commissioner Holloway.
So why are we doing it this way versus just the traditional way of designing it and bidding it?
I guess talking to Bill Welk, my professional engineer on staff, done this in the city of Vermillion for a project down there, and he said it went fairly well. Otherwise, we're gonna have to hire an engineering firm to design it, a consultant to design it like you have for the courthouse complex, and then once the design is done, then we have to go to a contractor and go out for bids for contract. This way, being a lot of the building is already pre-designed, you get the contractor involved and he works in hand with the designer. And I think we might get a better deal. Don't know until we go through it. I guess I talked to Mike at Buildings and Grounds yesterday a little bit, and he said that once we select a consultant and we say this is what we want, he's more than happy to sit down and go through the requirements and say, well, he thinks that Buildings and Grounds could do this and he thinks that they could do that, and we could remove some of those items. So we could control the cost, I think, a lot more effective.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
are we gonna see this again after you select somebody, or?
Yes, you can have, the commissioners can put somebody on the committee to select a consultant. We're not opposed to that. We have to set up a committee to review the people that submit proposals. And then, once we select the design contractor, then we negotiate the cost. So it gives us I think a lot of opportunity and a lot more effective control through the whole process.
I think Commissioner Holloway has been on a lot of building committees, and he's excellent to be on this committee.
So, but Heine, the state law requires, I mean, it says that you can do this design build if there's a need to be faster than traditional design build. That's not the case here. We don't have to do this really quick. There's no driving force for the speed.
Well, yes and no. I guess if we go out and hire a consultant, do a design, we probably wouldn't be in construction till late this fall.
Late next fall? For a
Yeah,
pole
late
barn?
late next fall.
For a pole barn?
Well, depends how long a designer's gonna take to design it.
Well, he'll take as long as you give him the money to
Yeah,
do it. But
that's true.
if you're negotiating a design with a design firm, and what you've said is that this stuff is all pre-designed by the companies.
A lot of it is.
You're not gonna give him very much money, or hopefully nobody would give him very much money to design, so he's gonna design it pretty fast. So
That's true.
speed is not an issue. The project is complex and requires close coordination. That's not a case, is it?
No, we didn't identify number 2. We identified number 3.
Requires early cost commitments? What's the
Cost
deal there?
containment, commitments, yes. In other words, they'll commit to doing it for this amount of money, so.
Isn't that what a bid is too?
That's true, that's true.
I rest my case on having Don on the committee.
I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
I just don't see, I don't see that we meet the statutory requirements to be able to do it with a design build.
Okay, I have no
But I'm not a
problem.
lawyer, so I would ask the state's attorney to look this over and let us know.
Mr. Chairman, the way I read it, and I haven't read the statute, it says that the determination must be based on one or more of the requirements. And I don't think 1, 2, 3, qualify. So I don't know if 4 even qualifies. So I'm not sure we qualify under the statute, frankly. But
I have no problem with that. I guess I would then ask for a motion to allow the highway department to do an RFP to start the design on a shop facility in New Underwood. And we can just not go this process.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
one of the things I'm a little concerned about is we do sort of have a committee set up for this, Heine, through the building committee. And I know the building committee is busy, but really, we probably needed to be more aware in the building committee. You did come say you wanted to do this. We've heard nothing since. And it's nice to set up another committee, but my goodness, we can set up committee after committee after committee, kind of all doing the same thing. And for me personally, I think this should have been brought to the building committee before even being brought here. And we could have maybe directed you a little differently.
Okay. Yeah, I could have done that. I guess that one meeting I attended and I said we do have money in the budget for a shop in New Underwood and the question was, could I get some help from the group to design it? And it kind of said, well, no, that's your building over there in New Underwood and.
Correct. But you didn't bring back anything
Oh,
about
okay.
going forward with it. We didn't know until we got our packet you were going forward with it.
Well, I can bring it to the building committee and ask them for approval to
Well,
go out
and
and.
thought, I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, we probably would have avoided this.
Do you have money in your budget to build you a new shop out here on 79?
No,
Oh,
I considered I was under the long-range plan for that one that you've been working under.
Heine, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd make a motion that the highway superintendent bring this to the building committee at this afternoon's meeting.
I'll say.
I have a motion and a second to defer this item to the building committee. Any further discussion? I would ask a couple questions.
Okay?
Are you positioned with the city of New Underwood to move over south of the creek with the?
Yes, we have waters to the site, power's right there at the site. We just have to get a meter. And we have the site basically prepared. We just finished hauling in fill material last week. So the site is pretty much set to go. And
What's the status of the highway shopping wall?
the highway shopping wall is a little bit larger than the one we're proposing in New Underwood. But that is a new facility that was built, say, 8 years ago. We built a new shopping wall.
And what procedure was used in building that shop?
We designed it in-house. At that time, Bill Anderson was on staff and he had electrical and mechanical experience. And we did blueprints in-house.
Is that a pole type structure?
Yes. And Bill also designed the salt storage shed that we have here in Rapid City. Now, I guess you did authorize me to hire Bill Anderson on a part-time basis to do right-of-way and plats and stuff for us where we need a plat for a right-of-way. And I suppose I could approach him to see if he would take that wall design and amend it and change it to fit this building site. That's a possibility.
So if this motion passes, exploring some other options will not set you back too far.
No, no, it's in next year's budget, and I just thought it's a good time to get started on design and the process so that we could get a structure built. sometime in 2013, but that'd be an option too, to talk to him and see if he'd be interesting, because it's his design, his drawings, so he's familiar with it. We would just need to tweak the electrical a little bit and the mechanical a little bit. We don't know. I guess I was hoping for a recommendation on what kind of heat in the building, if we should consider the new in-floor type heating or do forced air or gas or electric. New Underwood, there's no natural gas line out there, so it'd have to be propane or an all-electric type building, so.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
The next item is a Moon Meadows cut across. This was back in 2008 when there was talk about some big stores, retail stores being built along Highway 16 south of the slide area up there and across from Moon Meadows. The highway department went ahead and talked to Mr. Ham, Leo Ham, about acquiring a right-of-way and a possible cut-across road between Moon Meadows and Sheridan Lake Road. A lot of that talk focused because Moon Meadows was reconstructed and it has shoulders out to the point of that curve. And then from that point, the rest of the way over to Dunsmore, it was a narrow rural section with no shoulders. And I had tried to get right away from Leo Ham's mother for that last 40 acres was unsuccessful. So with the talk of all the additional traffic, we approached him. And at that time, he said he was not interested. He didn't think the offer we made for the property was sufficient because it's classified as ag land, and our offer's based on 120% of assessed value. So if you look at the acres we need for this parcel, and even looking at today's assessed value based on 120% of assessed value, it'd only be about $800 and some. So it'd be less than $1,000 for an 80-foot right-of-way. He called me on the phone. He's interested now in having the county pursue it, and he said he would be very reasonable with the right-of-way. The only thing two things he required is that he needs access from one side of the road to the other for his cows to graze, which would probably require a cattle pass type structure. And his other request on the phone was that if he does this, he would like something in it to say it has to be built in 3 or 4 years. Now, the other thing that's going on, there's an auction today on the 40-acre parcel that's owned by it was owned by his mother. She passed away. Now it's in the family, and they're selling that at an auction today. So that shouldn't affect this parcel, but I don't know what the goal is. But anyway, he asked me to bring it in front of the commissioners, that he's willing to negotiate and work with the county if the county builds that road in 3 to 4 years, and our estimated costs to construct that road would be $475,000. So I guess what I need to know is do you want the highway department to continue to acquire this, realizing that in 4 years we're gonna have to spend this kind of money, or do you just wanna table it? And
Well, will we be able to meet his timeline work-wise, in work plan-wise? And will we have the funding by?
well, that's the question. We're gonna have to budget for it. And it
But
will
don't you-
probably take away from some of the other projects on our long-range plan. And when we did our long-range transportation study, this never popped up as something that we should be looking at, so,
So we have to change that?
yes.
I guess for me, I'd like to know what those consequences are before I decide this. I'd like to know what other projects would have to be changed
Oh,
in order to
okay.
accommodate this.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Heine, really, when you get right down to it, who's this going to benefit? Will it benefit the traveling public, the citizens of Pennington County? Or will it help out the landowner more than other people?
Well, the only issue we have ongoing out there right now is the Dunsmore Road Sheridan Lake intersection. It's congested and we've had complaints that you have to wait a long time at the stop signs and that they feel there should be stoplights up there. We've worked with the city of Rapid City. They've done, I think, 3 different studies on that intersection as far as traffic signals. Do they meet the warrants? And the only time that intersection meets the warrants is about an hour in the morning, an hour and a half in the morning when everybody's trying to get to work. Otherwise, the rest of the day, it doesn't justify signals. So, and would this lessen the impact on that intersection? It may to some point, but then we'll have another intersection about a quarter mile away, so. But most of the traffic out there is coming off of Dunsmore out of the new development that the city built on the north side of Sheridan Lake and not so much on the south side. And then if this parcel sells today and some developer wants to come in there and develop it, they're gonna want additional access too, and we're probably gonna have to restrict them maybe to Moon Meadows or Dunsmore because that will be way too close to our existing intersection.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Heine, if in fact we built this cut across, as you're showing on this little map, we'd still have to maintain that road to the north that comes down to Dunsmore
Yes,
because there's a lot of houses there. So we'd still have to maintain that.
yes, we
We're not
would.
going to get rid of any road. We're just going to add this little section. And since this 40 acres right down in that corner by Moon Meadows Road, Dunsmore, and Sheridan Lake Road, since that's selling today, and presumably whoever's going to buy that, just the 40 acres is going to buy it for development, different than what the Hams have used it just for pasture. It would seem to me like we may be back into a good negotiation, or at least as they start developing that, getting that part of Moon Meadows Road wider with the shoulders that you're looking for without having to build another road across there.
Yes, if that would sell to a developer and they have to go through the Rapid City's plating jurisdiction, that would be
That'd be
one of the first requests I would put on there, that we need additional right-of-way along the north side of Moon Meadows.
Yep.
And possibly Dunsmore too, as part of their plating, we would want additional right-of-way in Dunsmore in case that ever has to go to a 3-lane, or we want to put a dedicated turning lane on that, so.
So I think we ought to hold off on this. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a good idea, and it might very well might be, but it would look like we ought to wait and let the rest of the game be played as it relates to that property to figure out what's going on there before we make a decision to build another road.
I would agree. In 2008, it was pretty important to look at that when those stores were talking about being built, but now it's a whole different situation, and it did not hit our long-range plan as something we should be considering, so.
So I don't know I mean, we've discussed this. Do you need a motion, or do you want to just put it on your radar and keep track of it?
Well, I'm gonna have to call Mr. Ham back and tell him that, no, we're not gonna pursue it, or yes, we are, and I
I want to
guess.
make a motion to table this.
You know,
Second.
I'll second it, but then we'll have some discussion.
We have a motion and a second. Motion to table.
No discussion.
Any further discussion?
Heine, I guess I wouldn't tell Mr. Ham that we're not interested. I guess I'd tell him that we want to hold off on it for a period of time. That's what this is about. It's not that we're never interested in it, because at some point it might be valid.
And that,
Okay.
I think the motion to table would do that exact thing, to say that we don't want to throw it away, but right at the moment, we'll bring it up later on, maybe.
That's what I needed.
Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heine. Item 16.
Is that us?
That's you.
Good morning. Nick Strude, HR Director, Pennington County. Holly Hennies and I are here today kind of as a update motion request for a project that we're going to jointly undertake that's badly needed in the county. What we are going to do is try to do a full undertaking of the policies and procedures for the county and get our handbook along with some other documents updated. We want to come to the commission to get your support and hopefully get some support from some other departments, in that in an organization such as ours, we have our employee handbook, which is a global document, but some of the larger departments have their own handbooks as well, and that's appropriate because of the things that they do. The treasurer's office, the sheriff's office, they have their own policies that just affect them. What we'd like to do is solicit some support from them to gather those up, make sure all of those are in compliance, one, and make sure we're not overlapping in our documents. So we put down to protect the county from various risks, both inside and out, and that's really what a handbook or what a policy and procedure manual does, is protect you from risks and give the employees and the citizens a baseline for what to expect from us. Like it says here, we're gonna gather information from the departments. We've committed to meeting at least once a week, just Holly and I, to try to get this, because it is a large project and we need a commitment from each other to not push this aside as we've maybe done in the past. And so our goal is to be completed within 6 months to a year. We think if we stay on it, we can do that. So the motion requested is there, and Holly and I would be available to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions? Do you need a motion?
The motion we requested is on a memo that's in front of you, so if someone would like to make one, or a similar one, or a totally different one, that's...
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd make a motion to approve a complete review of Pennington County policies and procedures, including the employee handbook, and all departments shall work cooperatively with Human Resources and the Commission Office.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, I'll support the motion, but the shall is a little strong word, and I'm not sure that we got the power to shall anybody to do this. But hopefully they will work cooperatively with you.
I just talked with the sheriff, and he offered his full support, and he offered his HR person up whenever we needed it. So that's half the battle right there, and I know shall is pretty strong, but we're not gonna try to bully anyone in this project.
Thank you.
Any further debate? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 17. Commissioner Holloway.
All right, I guess I asked to have this put on mainly to just review the 1995 motion that was put into place. I just questioned having a county commissioner attend the planning and zoning meetings, and we rotate that on a monthly basis. And so a commissioner goes to it anywhere from 3 or 4 times a year. You go to a planning and zoning commission meeting, and it just seems to me like we're kind of out of touch with it when we just show up that few times in the year. And my comment that I've made to some is that if we had a planning and zoning board member who only showed up out of the year, 3 or 4 times, we'd say they weren't a very effective board member. And so it seems like, as a commissioner, just showing up 3 or 4 times, and granted, maybe we should know more about planning and zoning, but than the average citizen. But I tell you, most of the people that serve on that planning and zoning committee are pretty knowledgeable of what they're doing, and so I just questioned why we were doing it. My thought originally was, do we even need a commissioner on the board? But I guess state statute does require a commissioner there. So I'm not sure there's anything we can do with this from where it's at, but that was why I asked to have it on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
ever since the beginning of this in 1995, is that when it was, I have always questioned whether we're legal to do it the way we're doing it. It says one member of the planning commission shall be a member of the board of commissioners. And I don't know, with this alternating every month, if that is really meeting that part of the statute.
Any other comments? The assignment of responsibilities and commitments comes in January. And I would think this matter could be decided then. And if it's decided that a member should be permanently committed to the Planning Commission for the year, that we also think about the process by which the honored commissioner would be selected. You know, white bean, red bean, whatever. But
Well, and I think that's a good idea, Mr. Chair, and I think, and obviously it's a big commitment for somebody to have that kind of a commitment as it relates to a lot of our other committees that don't meet that often. So if a person was going to just assign one person to it, well, then I would hope that we would look at the other committee assignments and maybe not have that person have to be responsible for some of them other committees.
I think that's appropriate. Do you wish to take any action today?
I guess I don't. If my thought had been correct when I first looked into this, I may have, but since I now better understand the statute and all of those things, I think your idea of dealing with it later on is probably the appropriate way.
Thank you. Items from the chair at this point, I don't have anything to offer, so unless someone has some questions of the chair, we can move to item 19.
All right, good morning again, Commissioners. We're here today and it was kind of printed in your agenda wrong. We're not asking to create an assistant planning director. Talking with KJ, the position is on our official roster. What we're asking to do is have it moved from a 17 to a 21 to fall in line with the rest of the assistant directors or chief deputies. So and I'll back up, and what Dan and I did is when he came to me, talking to me about this, his assistant director was the same level as his planner 3s, which was a 17. And he thought that the amount of work that you would ask an assistant director to do should be more than what you ask your line employees to do, and I agreed. So the first step that we did is we redid the job description. That's always the first thing anytime you're looking at changing or reviewing a job, is you look at the job description, make sure that it accurately reflects what the position is supposed to do. So we did that. And after that was done, we went to the compensation committee, and I presented on behalf of Dan. And it was found in the second memo that you have from the compensation committee, it was found that Most, or if not all, of the other departments have their assistant director or chief deputy 3 steps below the director. And so in keeping with that, if we were to move this, the appropriate grade would be grade 21, or 3 steps below the planning and zoning director, which is a grade 24. So with that, I would open it up to questions of Dan and I.
You currently have a job description as an assistant planning director, is that correct?
Yes, it's just that we're modifying it slightly with this.
So what is the modifications that you've made?
Do you have, is this the one that you have?
I've
Yeah,
got one
okay.
right here.
As with a lot of our job descriptions, they were created a long, long time ago. So this is another one that we totally redid. We started from scratch.
This isn't what you're proposing.
Yes, that is what
That
we're
is what's being
proposing.
Well,
proposed.
part of the assistant planning director's job is going to be management and supervision. But when I looked at the experience and/or education requirements, the only thing that I can touch on that talks about any management is skill in mentoring staff and promoting team building. I would hope that if we're trying to put somebody in a management job, one of the things we're trying to do is find someone who has some management skills, either education or experience, and also some personnel management, either education or experience,
And, okay, sorry.
to be part of a job description, to make that selection from.
And maybe on the, at least on our copy, the last bullet, or the first bullet under experience, we put 4 years progressively responsible experience in planning, and maybe we should have separated that and outlined some more in management experience, and we can definitely do that.
And right now, do you have someone filling a position of assistant planning director?
It's currently vacant right now.
That position is vacant.
We had someone in that, and they made the argument that they're at the same grade as a planner 3, just with increased duties, and asked to step down to a planner 3. So basically, the paycheck stayed the same. They just lost a lot of management duties, and that kind of highlighted the idea that
Would your plan then be to have the assistant planning director be able to do the duties and responsibilities of a planning director 3 in addition to some management?
Yes, be filling in when I'm not there.
But you want them to have the skills to be able to fulfill the duties and responsibilities of a planning director 3.
A planning director 3, or a planner 3, yes.
Planner
yes,
3.
Yes.
So is the requirements that you've got for a planner 3 inclusive of the essential functions and experience that you're requiring of your assistant planning director?
Well, it includes a planner 3. Of all those duties a planner 3 does, the assistant director would do the same and more.
yeah,
Yes.
it's in
Yes.
there. That's what our goal was, is to take a planner 3, or the essential functions of a planner 3, and then add the additional assistant director duties to create
On top of that.
Sure.
the reasoning for the
Okay.
increased pay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman. So I assume that the person who stepped down, the minute we do this, is going to want to step up again.
Possibly, yes.
But, and that's a great question, but I want to try to get this county.
That's why I asked.
I know, never ask a bad one, Ron. I want to get the county in the process of doing this correctly. And doing it correctly is reviewing the job description, getting it properly placed on the wage scale, and then filling the position. So until we get the job description done, we get it properly placed on the wage scale, then we can move on to the hurdles that we're going to have to jump through to fill it, which we know there are.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
first of all, I think we need to clarify that I don't believe that person stepped down because of the management that they were doing for the quality that they were getting paid. Secondly, I think you can make somebody in charge whenever you're out of the office. And I believe there's a compensation package someplace for that, if I remember a long time ago. But I'd have to think long and hard before I'd make the changes you're asking.
And I wouldn't, yeah. I don't, the assistant how we envision this is more of a day-to-day assistant in the management of the office, with Dan's job duties being out of the, in and out, doing things that planning and zoning does, having someone else that the people can go to is the idea. They're not always in the office, just based on the duties that they perform. So it's not even necessarily when Dan's out for 2 weeks on vacation. It's every day when he's out.
Meetings,
Looking at
site
property.
trips, yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Well, I would think that if in fact, apparently we currently have an assistant planning director, but we got him at a pay grade of a 17.
Correct.
And which isn't consistent with the assistants that we've placed in other offices. And so, you know, I think adjusting that pay scale is probably appropriate. Now, whether we fill the position is a different discussion.
And if I may, you know, if you guys were to approve the adjustment on the pay scale, but before it opened, you wanted to see a revised job description that had some more of your concerns answered, we could definitely do that. We could,
But just a second, you said before it opened.
or before we attempted to fill it.
Well, I'm not voting. You know, you talk too much. You took victory or defeat right out of the jaws of victory when you said that.
Okay.
For me.
I'm trying today to get this move from a 17 to a 21. Anything beyond that, we would be happy to come back to you and discuss before we move forward.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I can go with moving it from the 17 to 21, but I am stuck on the job description. I have some pretty strong concerns,
Okay.
and I would like to discuss that again. Some of the things, one of the things I recognize is that, yes, you have a different department, but there should be some similarities between what other assistant directors do as far as job description, and I want to know that this is comparable, and I don't necessarily feel that it is. I also had some concerns about, to some extent, some of these job duties look like they're a permanent, every day, all day kind of thing, and I feel that the wording needs to be changed so that it indicates that it is when Dan is not in the office. There are some things that I believe it's right to change the grade level, but I don't think, first of all, I don't know that I would go along with hiring a new employee or moving someone up within the department. But before you do that, I have some problems with
And
jobs.
that's what I want to try to do, is get the process moving in the order that it should. We put in there, you know, in my world, assists means a lot. We leave it broad. And so we put in there assists with this, assists with that. And we leave it that broad to hopefully when someone comes in, they would say that, listen, this isn't your permanent duty, but you're assisting me with the management of staff. Or, you know,
Well,
I'm
and it
looking
also
for.
could mean that that person becomes the one who handles it, because we have observed that in our other
Sure.
departments, and that's not necessarily
Right.
right either, so.
And then we also have to remember, once this is perfect, it's still on the department head and the assistant director to have a positive working relationship. Because no matter what this says, if the person comes in and they totally ignore it and they create their own working relationship, then that can, no matter what's on paper, if the people in the job aren't the ones doing it, then it's not gonna work for us. So, but you're right, if we can get this properly graded today, and then we come back and work with you or any other commissioner that wants to see a revised job description, we could be happy to do that. And I wish Ron was here. I didn't mean to say we were gonna go and open it. I'm just saying, way before we ever go to think about opening it, we have to follow this step and get it properly graded.
Ron's on his way back, but
Okay.
in the meantime, I have a question.
Please.
My question is, if you're going to establish a policy related to the pay differential between the director and the assistant director, rather than say it'll be a 21 or a whatever, why not just say there will be a 3 point differential between department heads and assistants, and that would take you up and down the scale.
Sure.
No matter what the situation was.
We've never had that before, and that could probably be part of our review of the handbook. That could be something that we could put in there. When we took the elected officials off of the wage scale, I can tell you before we took them off, they were all 3 steps below as well. They followed right in line with everything else, but now that they're off, there is no 3 steps to compare, but that would definitely be something we could do for the appointed department heads.
Is that consistent with all departments?
There is one department, the public defender's chief deputy is 2 steps behind. And when I asked how that came to be, KJ said, well, we moved them up because one, they're an attorney, and they're also a chief deputy. So the only department that we have that is not in line with the 3 below is the public defender, and they are 2 below. So I believe they're a 26, like highway, but their chief deputy is a 24.
Well, it would seem like if
But
they're
you could achieve your margin by moving the top guy down or the bottom guy up, right?
Absolutely.
Good plan.
I was gonna say, because of they're an attorney, that should be a negative, not a positive.
Okay. All right.
So,
Someone-
Ron,
someone,
when you were gone, I made the point that I didn't want anyone to think we were attempting to fill this position anytime soon. We just wanted to follow the procedure, and then after, the thing we're asking for today is just have it moved to a 21, and if I need to work, and Dan and I need to work with commissioners to get the job description better, then we'd be happy to do that.
I would agree with that position, I believe. But are you going to bring back a revised job description?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Chair will entertain the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I got just one question, and I know that the planning department has a number of more employees in it than emergency management, but that emergency management director, we don't need him every day, but he's out there doing every day what he needs to do to protect this county from any kind of an emergency, and making planned ahead for an emergency if it does happen. And we've only got the emergency management director at 21. So I can't believe that the emergency management director is worth that little bit to the county compared to an assistant planning director. And as you said, there wouldn't be any reason why we couldn't scale down one instead of scale up. So I got a real problem with that. If we're going to do something there, I think we ought to do something with the emergency management director also.
Well, I think we have a
So we're-
compensation committee.
Yep.
And,
Absolutely. I would invite, and I know, and to answer that, I know when we went to the new way of hiring an emergency management director, even though it says 21 on our scale, it's pretty complicated on how they get paid because still
Paid
a
by the city, county, and
employee-
state.
Yeah.
And federal.
And so I don't believe that the emergency management director is as cut and dry as a 21, because that person is still a class or a B class SDRS member, and there's some different things. I'd be happy to have Kevin or Dustin come in and explain that better than I can, but I have no problem with inviting the emergency management director to our next compensation committee meeting and discussing their pay as well.
Okay, motion?
I'd make a motion to move the assistant planning director from a grade 17 to a grade 21.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
We have our next item at 10:30. You want to just sit here and visit, or?
Make a motion to take a
break?
10-minute break. 10 minutes, is it 10 or 11? 10, I guess.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I did.
Second? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item on the agenda is the Board of Adjustment. Do we have a motion?
I move to go into a Board of Adjustment.
Second.
Moved and seconded to convene as a Board of Adjustment. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Good morning, Dan Jennison, Pennington County Planning Director. Item A is a variance request, VA 12-11 for William Young, is to reduce the minimum required front yard and side yard setbacks from 25 feet to 0 feet, and to reduce the minimum required lot size in a general ag and limited ag from 40 acres and 10 acres to 0.35 acres. And if the Board of Adjustment approves the applicant's setback variance request, staff would request that 3 conditions be part of the approval. This is located at 8100 Dark Canyon Road on a 0.35 acre parcel. It is currently zoned general ag and limited ag zoning districts. The variance also indicated it was for a lot size. After researching it, it is actually not needed. The lots are currently grandfathered and do not need that part of this variance request. So the property is currently zoned 2 different zoning districts, the limited ag and general ag, both zoned prior to 1994 and does not meet the minimum lot size requirements. However, it is grandfathered. The applicant has also applied for a section line vacation. This section line goes right through the middle of the lot. As you can see here, this is the Young property, this is the adjoining property. They are both in on the vacation of the section line. This red line is the section line. The section line does go right through the middle of the house, the cabin, existing house, and the drain field and everything is in the section line. That is a later agenda item later on in the meeting. Existing structures on this one property is a cabin, a small shed. The shed is currently on top of the drain field. It does and will need to be required to be removed from on top of the drain field. The applicant has agreed to remove it. There's also a new shed that is right on the property line in the front. In this shed, the applicant has indicated he will be moving it, and this is where he'd like to build a new garage in that location. It is right adjacent to Dark Canyon Road. There's also a 100-year floodplain on the property. He will be required to do a floodplain development permit prior to construction of that. The shed is only partially constructed. He did get a letter from us. He did stop construction once he got that letter. The property is of steep topography. It is very limited. It is zoned general ag and limited ag, which typically require 10 acres or 40 acres. It is only 0.35 acre parcel. The drain field also limits the buildable area on the property. Very steep topography. I can show you pictures. This is looking from the cabin down to the shed. Dark Canyon Road is this right here. This is the shed that was started and then stopped. This shed is currently on top of the drain field and will be required to be removed. This is Dark Canyon Road. This is the shed. House up here. You can see it does go up. Rather steep topography on the property. Just another picture of the property line. I believe property line is right in this location in here. Strict application of the zoning ordinance would not allow him to build or it would be very difficult for him to build a garage on the property. However, there's nothing in our zoning ordinance that he is entitled to build a garage. So with that, if you approve the variance request, I'd recommend that 3 conditions be attached.
So, Mr. Chair, what size of garage is one to be built there?
I am not exactly sure how big the applicant would like to build. He is here to answer your question if you want to ask him.
And then what's the slope like to the south, or the south side of that lot. Because it looks like there's a well that sets, look like maybe close to the center.
The new garage that's being built is just to the right here, standing on the road, so you can see it's fairly steep going up. This is existing cabin that's also right in the section line.
Okay. Well, I guess I would have some questions for Mr. Young, if it would be appropriate.
Good morning.
Morning. Why don't you go to the other side of your lot and build the garage? If you want a garage, go in there and build it in that area. Granted, you'd have to dig out some of that hillside, but it looks like there would be room between your well and the lot line and back towards your deck to get it off the Dark Canyon right away, plus keep it away from your boundary line on the south side.
There are a couple of issues that would preclude putting the garage on that side, and believe me, I've looked at it. If you're looking at this image here, this is a power pole that would need to be relocated, and then the well is basically right here. And it's very steep. With those two issues, it would be much more difficult to locate the garage on this side of the property as opposed to the other. If you go back to the other image, you can see the well here, the hillside here, that power pole is right here.
But power poles can be moved. I mean, that's and, you know, granted that goes up the hill, but still you could have your driveway coming up that would be a slope going up to your up to your garage. Frankly, it's your request to have a zero clearance on the lot line side as well as the front property line. It would, I mean, if everybody wanted that, we'd have a mess.
Sure.
And frankly, if the people that have the lot just to the north said, well, we want to build it, you know, if you're going to let Mr. Young build it right up on the lot line, we want to do the same thing, you'd have the walls of your garages or houses side by side, and that would not be acceptable, I don't think, for you or other people. So
One other issue that I'd like to point out is in visiting with the engineers in anticipation of a floodplain development plan, they've indicated that the only place where I'm in the floodplain is right at this power pole. There's a little triangle that comes across the road right at the power pole. Other than that, they've indicated that the rest of the property is out of the floodplain.
okay, on the little map that we've got that's in this book, it looks like that power pole is real close to the line, but what you're telling me, it's back closer to the well, is that right?
That power pole is approximately 8 feet from what would be the side lot between my property and the Schiller property.
Okay. So between the power pole and the well, what's the distance?
Probably about 14 feet, approximately.
Okay. And you say it's just because of the slope of the hill there, that's why you're not interested in putting your garage between the well and the power pole and setting it back off of the dry or Dark Canyon Road and putting it in that way. It's just the slope of the hill that's creating you the problem?
The slope of the hill, the approximate area of the floodway, the power pole, and the well. And what?
Drain field.
And the drain field.
Well, the drain field's on the other side.
Yes.
it wouldn't be a problem with the drain field at all if he came in there just off the deck and build his garage in there.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Well, you know my feelings on, or at least the board knows them, on variances. And I guess my feeling on this is that people move out to the Black Hills just for scenery and great visual, and it creates problems with the building. But living out there has its benefits, and it also has its hazards. And to me, this is one of the hazards, that you can't have everything that we have in town and live out there too. So you kind of got to make up your mind. So I guess I'll be voting against it.
I would like to point out that I've asked for a 0-foot setback at the recommendation of the planning and zoning folks that I've met with. I can negotiate to about 3 feet and still put in the structure that I would like.
What size of a garage you want to put in?
I would like to put in a 2-car garage based on my full-size pickup is about 18 feet long.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so how are you going to enter that? Because the structure you've got there, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how you would change that to a 2-car garage. Were you going to end,
No, that will go away.
you would take that all down and start over?
That's right. And that shed is within the parameters of the county. It is 944 square feet. And so it did not, in fact, require a building permit. And
Not true. It does require a building permit. That's why we were out there. 144 square feet.
I'm sorry, 144 square feet. It is exactly 9 by 16.
But it's in the wrong spot.
It is in the wrong spot.
Bill, have you considered, if you don't want to go into the hillside over on the south side, have you considered bringing your driveway up on the north side and then putting your garage out behind the house? You got plenty of room there.
I would have to put a driveway over the drain field in order to do that.
Come up alongside. I mean, you can put your driveway on the lot line. I mean, there's not a restriction on driveways on the lot line.
The issue there, like I said, would be if we go back to the slide that shows where Dan's car is. You can see a concrete corner in the foreground here. There's a concrete marker and a survey pin here. So my lot line goes up on this side of the driveway and through this tree.
Okay.
This driveway actually accesses Karen Ellison's property.
Okay? But it still looks like you'd have room to do that, to get by your drain field and put it up behind. And then you don't have a problem.
The issue would be, and I don't mean to sound
Sure.
argumentative, because that's certainly not my intent, but if this is the lot line that goes through this tree here,
Yep,
I would have to build the driveway on this side of this pin,
Yep.
which would go right over my drain field.
so this drawing that we've got here is
not-
disproportionate.
Yeah, it's not really.
Is that right?
It's pretty close.
Well, it looks like there's quite a little room between your drain field and your lot line coming up. That's not what, when I look at, I don't know if you know which drawing we got this little drawing, and it looks like there's quite a little room in there for a driveway. I don't know, it just does not seem like doing even 3 foot is really too close, I think, to be able to build on. And frankly, then, if there is other options, then I'm not sure that that meets our requirement to grant the variance.
With the 3 foot, I could feasibly work in a garage where I would like to place it. And I would also like to remind the county that I have letters of support for such a structure from both of my adjoining neighbors who would be affected by the setback. And where the structure is now, where the shed sits now, the front of the shed is approximately 12 feet from the road surface. From where you can see the driving lane here, from here to here is approximately 12 feet.
Yeah.
And so I'd be well back off of the road.
So how far is it back from, how far is it, that shed setting back from your lot line?
The shed from the lot line is about 5 feet right now from the lot line that comes right across here.
Sure. And what you're proposing is to build a garage within 3 foot of that lot line.
It would be basically, the place I would like to put a garage would be basically where this structure is now.
And you would come into it from the road, like drive straight in like that?
There's two options. One would be to turn and drive in, and the other would be to have the garage doors on this side, and so you would drive in like this.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Otherwise, you'd be backing out into that road, which I don't imagine is very busy.
No. In fact, in this application, within 500 feet of my property, there are only 10 property owners.
There's only what?
10 property owners within the 500 feet of this property.
But Bill, one of the things I think that we have to consider is, granted, the people that are living, have those properties right now, maybe don't object to it, but the people they sell it to, and then they want to develop, and they come in and say, well, geez, you let him build within 3 foot of this road and within zero clearance of the lot line, I want to do the same thing, and it makes, I mean, that's why we have zoning requirements, so that you can maybe not protect the people that are wanting to do it today, but the people that are going to be living with it in the future.
Mr. Chair. Yes. Dan, do you have any pictures of around the other side? Now, where is that? Huh? No, that's still on the same side, only looking down the hill.
Oh, yeah, right here's Rapid Creek in here, and this is across the creek over here.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have it, yeah.
You don't have any up the hillside?
Oh, right here?
Yeah, but I was looking for around that corner. It looks like the corner, the road goes around and makes a loop. Okay,
This is the backyard.
and how do you access the backyard if any way?
On the other side of the garage. past
No,
the
I'm
storage
talking
shed.
about on this side. Is there any way to access the backyard on this side?
Not on that side.
Okay.
So, on this one map, we've got lot 44, and then we got lot 51, exhibit A1. Mr. Young's property is lot 44. Who's got lot 51?
That is Sam Schiller.
Schiller? And do they have a house on that lot?
They do not.
They are part of the section line vacation.
It's also my belief that Sam has written a letter of support.
Okay, where are we on this? Dan, how many issues apply strictly to the variance? Section line is a separate matter or not?
It will have to be approved, but I don't foresee any issues with that section line vacation. But the floodplain will have to be addressed if he's doing, well, even with the work he's done already, he has to do the floodplain development permit. And the shed has to be removed from on top of the drain field.
How long's that shed been there on top of the drain field?
About 4 months.
Wow. Bill, that really bothers me.
The reason the shed is there is if you go back to those slides of the back of the house, you can see that the hill is quite steep. The hillside was coming into the back of the cabin, and I had to move dirt from the side of the cabin and then re-side it because literally the siding was rotting. And so I had to move the shed to get access to the back of the property to move some dirt and to dig and to re-side.
Yeah, but putting it on top of a drain field? Kind of a problem.
And actually, Nancy, to address that, my original intent was to take all of the contents out of that red shed and move them down into the new shed and get rid of the red shed altogether. And I was working on on the new shed, and on the 15th of October, Rex Fackrell came out, and I did not actually receive a letter indicating that I needed to stop the work. He just indicated that I should. That same afternoon, I came down and met with Dan and started this process. But that red shed will be gone as soon as I have a place to.
Bill, to be honest with you, setting any kind of weight on top of a drain field in unstable soils is a little concerning to me. I probably would not. I mean, I just think there are other options. You could have moved what you had in there to a different storage area and just not put the shed there. I'm a little concerned about building a shed without a permit and then putting another one on a drain field bothers me a lot.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Dan, what is the zoning of this property right now?
It's currently zoned 2 different zoning districts, limited ag and general ag. Both are grandfathered, and the section line is the dividing line between the 2 different zoning districts.
Okay,
There's
so
nothing in our ordinance that says that they have to be the same zoning
no.
district.
But so if we remove the section line, they're still gonna be zoned separate pieces of property. Okay, what is the setback on general ag and limited ag?
They're both the same, 25 feet from all property lines.
From all property lines?
Which is,
Dan, is the other property surrounding this property all ag land as well?
Actually, the property, I have a zoning map right here. This is the .35 acre parcel.
Yep.
General ag on this side, this is limited ag.
All of the green is limited ag?
Yeah, the darker green, this is a light green, that's general, this is limited. And then this is suburban residential district, this is a low density residential.
is there a little, there's a lot, yeah, that is suburban residential
Yeah,
right there.
this is suburban residential district right here.
So what's, and the setbacks on that is 8-foot sides and 25-foot street front?
Mr. Chair, then my next question would be, can you get back 25 foot from the front right away?
Not where the proposed garage is. And I don't know, even if I went into the hillside, if I could get back 25 feet. Because by the time I'm back into that hillside 25 feet, the back wall of the garage is going to be 18 feet tall.
Well, unless you put a retaining wall in.
I would have to put, if we go back to the slide where the well is, I would have to put a big concrete wall between the well, if I were to dig straight into the hillside here, this would be a retaining wall in the back. It'd have to be a big concrete foundation wall to hold the hill stable.
But I guess I'm talking about on the other side, can it go back from right where you want it, back into that hill 25, so you can get a 25-foot setback?
It'd be right in the drain field.
Okay.
And that's why I'm asking for the setback, because then I can squeeze it in between the setback and the drain field.
Is the location of the vehicle that's in the picture where you normally park? Is that your?
That is one of there's basically, before the shed was there was a parking spot on that side. The truck is in the normal spot, and then you can see that green treated timber there. There's a parking spot there.
Okay, does everyone kind of understand the elements that we're addressing here? Because I think among other things, we need to open the floor up for other discussion. So we'll excuse you at this moment and
Thank you.
Ask if there's anyone else that wishes to address this issue. State your name, please.
My name is King Swanson. I represent 6S Corporation, which owns the property to the north of his lot. And if he's asking for a zero clearance for all the lot lines, then what is going to preclude Mr. Young from building all the way up to and affecting the property that my brothers own to the north? So that's our concern at this point.
Mr. Chair, can I answer that? First, if he's only asking for setbacks on the front side, he's not asking for all the way around,
Just the front side?
Yep.
Oh, that's not a problem
as
then.
far as I understand.
No,
Front end side.
Well, the front end and one side.
and one
Yeah.
side, okay, but,
But that can be limited to just where
Okay.
the garage
It'd
is.
be the north side.
yeah, to the very north, so.
And typically, we would state that if he wanted another structure to be encroaching, he would need another variance request.
Okay.
So I'm taking north from this is up behind his house, correct?
Yeah, it would be up the hill, correct. But if
Do you
he's
have
not
any
asking
other
for that, then,
Comments in?
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Board. My name is Terry Hippel. I'm a property owner directly to the east across the road from Mr. Young. My property is 8059, and Mr. Jennison probably has a picture of my house over there. And I brought a couple photos, but I think we can probably get through most of it with photos Mr. Jennison has here. My wife and I are not trying to be bad neighbors, but we're very concerned about safety and the issues of, well, first we saw a structure going up that looked like a shed, and now I understand that they want a full-blown garage. And though there aren't a lot of people living in the canyon, I've got a brand-new granddaughter. You know, who's going to say when someone changes hands or someone comes in and a little one runs across the road when someone's trying to back out? And I don't know what orientation the garage would have going onto the road, but we're very concerned about the safety aspect. And the precedent set, if we start doing zero setbacks right onto a roadway that is very, very small anyway. I mean, there's been a lot of concern about how narrow that road is. It's practically an overgrown one-car lane. So safety issues are a big concern. And I know you've received some letters in support of Mr. Young improving the property, and I'm all for improving the property and making things better. One of the letters that was in support was from Karen Ellison, which was the property, I get my geography, to the south, directly to the south. And as Mr. Young pointed out, that driveway that goes up alongside of his house is actually on Karen Ellison's property. But when I looked at the letter from Karen, it appears that she was very much in favor of Mr. Young being able to use that driveway and access that, and she said, had a very open working relation to that. I don't know if Mr. Jennison can go back to that photograph of his vehicle parked in that roadway. And I had taken some pictures. I didn't know if we'd have any. Could I? Just pass these down. And I guess I had taken that picture, which is very well represented by the one Mr. Jennison has here, showing that little corner piece of concrete that is the corner of Bill's lot, and where Mr. Jennison's vehicle sitting is Karen Ellison's. So it is our belief, and I'm not an engineer, but it's our belief that whether an easement is granted or whether it's a handshake agreement, Mr. Young could drive right up that way. There's already a pathway behind the tree that he was talking about that's his property, and could access the back of the house. And I believe that there would be ample room to put a 1 or a 2-car garage behind the house. Now, here again, I'm not an engineer and I don't know the situation, and I don't think an engineering firm has been hired to assess that and give you the proper information for that. I also believe that with push and shove, there may be room for Mr. Young to build a garage in front of the house, abutting the deck, or possibly even reworking the deck to incorporate the deck and garage into one structure. But there again, I think an engineer would need to take a look at that, make that assessment. But our concern is very, very staunch that we think it's a real safety issue having a zero setback onto that very narrow roadway. There's just no room to turn or move, and if someone's backing out on a roadway, you could run into someone walking. So I think the attorney might have some issues with how the application has been done and all, but we want to be good neighbors. We're just very concerned with the setbacks and the safety issue. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
My name is Ed Carpenter, and I'm representing the Hippos, and authored the letter that was submitted in advance. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and I'll try to be real brief. First of all, what you have before you, and I think all the questions that have had to be asked point this out, that a variance is a special departure from the zoning ordinances that the county has determined are good for the people in the area and that live there. And you need a unique set of circumstances to vary from a zoning ordinance. These setback requirements, general ag or limited ag, are 25 feet. To start with, we have the building being built in the area without a permit. And then we have an application, and if you look at the application, it doesn't tell you any dimensions of a proposed garage. It doesn't tell you any dimensions of the proposed setback. I think from the face of it, and it doesn't address the floodplain permit, whether there's even a reason to be looking at this particular issue. As far as the ordinances themselves, they're pretty clear. In order to grant a variance, which is a unique grant, and I think I'd like to comment too, as Mr. Holloway did, that these zoning ordinances are for the good of the whole entire community. There has to be a showing of unnecessary hardship which would deprive an owner of the reasonable use of his land. The showing the Board of Adjustment has to ascertain that conditions are such that strict application would be an unwarranted hardship constituting an unreasonable deprivation of use, and that the granting of any variance is in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance and is not injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to the public welfare. And the the variance application didn't even address the garage ordinance itself, only the side setbacks and the front setback under the general requirements. I think in summary, the application is inadequate, and there can be no showing that meets the requirements of the county's zoning ordinance. If you have any, unless you have any questions, that's all I have to say. I think everything else is.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Is there anyone else? Yes.
I would like to address,
Bill, I have a question or two for you, but that's what I've just asked for the floor here if I can.
Yes.
Okay. And that was in my mind to talk to you or bring up the subject about going up that road where Dan's car is sitting. Now, apparently you have a good relationship with that neighbor, and according to the letter and things that we have. Is there any chance of getting an easement there on that road to go up there and then cut off onto your property and build up behind your drain field?
that possibility exists. And that I would have to have deep conversations, of course, with Karen to get to that point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone this till the next county commission meeting and give him an opportunity to talk to his neighbors about existing problems.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I mean, I'm gonna have a hard time, even if the neighbors say this is all right. I'm gonna have a hard time supporting this. And I think on a variance, you need 4 votes.
Well, I'm not talking about giving,
That's fine.
okay, I'm not talking about giving variance.
I don't wanna, and my experience with Mr. Buskerud is that he's not gonna vote for it. So, if, pardon?
I said he's predictable.
Yeah, in that area, in a way. So if we're gonna put this off until the next county commission meeting for him to talk to his neighbors, one of the things I'd like to have him look at is other options. Some other options that will get that garage up closer to your deck or get it around the back of the house or over on the other side of the lot and keep it away from the lot lines. You know, you may talk me into not requiring you 25 foot all the way around that, but you're not going to get me to go 0. And frankly, I'm going to want to see it quite a ways off this front of the lot, just because I've driven up that road as well as a lot of other people, and it's a narrow road already. And so to put something real close to the road, I'm not going to be supportive of it. You could talk me into allowing you to put it closer to the lot lines, but again, not 0. So I don't know if you're just going to talk to the neighbors and come back, you're probably not going to get 4 votes.
May I address the commission?
Mr. Chair, just a second, Bill. And first of all, I'm not sure that everybody understood what I had brought up, but I'm not for building this in the position that he wants to build it. I don't like that 0 setback on either side of it. And that's why I'm wondering if he can get up this road and get around to the backside and adhere to all of the setbacks. Now, he could, if he wanted to, rezone this property to suburban residential, which is compatible. Wouldn't take much to get that done. So now we're down to 25 foot on the front and 8 foot on the side. And there is suburban residential in that area that wouldn't preclude that from happening. So I guess that's kind of where I was coming from. I'm with Don and Ron apparently to 0 setback on that road is not the thing to do.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question, then I have a statement. How long has that cabin been there?
The county says it's been there since 1964.
Okay.
But my family's owned it since 64, and it was in existence before that.
Okay.
It's anecdotally since the 30s.
So I guess my point there is, if we're going to look at strict application of the zoning law, which prevents him from the reasonable use of his land, it's been used since the 30s. So I don't think whether he can build a garage or not has anything to do with the reasonable use of this property. A garage is nice to have on your property, but they've used the cabin for 70 years, 80 years. So I don't see that, and the point of all that was, I don't see stopping this for 2 weeks is going to make any difference in that. except it'll make 2 more weeks use of the property. So it'll be 80 years and 2 weeks.
Commissioner Troutman, do you have any comments?
I'm good. Unless you, I guess we can wait till we vote, but I am concerned, first of all,
Give him time to get it done.
well, I already expressed my concerns. I don't like it that I didn't know when I visited with Bill that he was proceeding to build something without a permit and that he had put a building on top of a drain field. So that sets me kind of back right now where I would like to know more exactly what he's doing. I don't feel like we know that.
I think it's reasonable that we express ourselves, at least so that if the motion passes, he has the opportunity to explore options instead of guessing what he should bring back. And I think the bottom line is such that the use of property to the best possible advantage is something that is a pretty basic right. And perhaps arguing a little bit with Commissioner Buskerud, the reference to how long it's been there and so on. If Mr. Young was a new buyer and acquired the property and came in and said, this is what I want to do with it, respecting the public considerations and also the private ownership is our responsibility. So we do have a motion, and unless anyone else has any further discussion, I would call for a vote. And we'll do a roll call.
No.
Davis?
Yes.
Holloway?
Clarification, if I could. No, we're voting just to continue this for 2 weeks. Yes.
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Next,
Motion to come out of Board of Adjustment.
have a motion and a second to come out of a Board of Adjustments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is the consent calendar, consent agenda for planning and zoning. Dan?
The Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of the board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item B is a second reading of ordinance amendment 12-05 for Pennington County to amend section 400.3-1-N-3, 6, and 10, section 500.5-1-A-3-A, and section 500.5, and Table 1 of the Pennington County Subdivision regulations. Approval is recommended, and the first reading was approved on 12/4/2012. Item C is a second reading of rezoning 12-11 and comprehensive plan 12-07 RMS load Matt Keck, and approval was recommended, and the first reading was approved on December 4th. Item D is a preliminary plat 12-42 and subdivision regulation variance 12-15 RMS load Matt Keck. Approval was recommended with waivers. Item E is a preliminary plat 12-38 for Nina McBride and Sandy Barney. Approval was recommended. Item F is the first reading and a public hearing of rezoning 12-12 for Nina McBride and Sandy Varney, and approval was recommended.
Does anyone wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda for planning and zoning as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the planning and zoning consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is item G.
This is a vacation of a section line, 12-03, William Young, to vacate 170 feet of a section line right-of-way across lots 44 and 51. Staff is recommending approval of the section line vacation request with one condition. This is located on the previous application of the variance request, 8100 Dark Canyon Road, approximately 2.5 miles west of Highway 44, near the end of it. And it involves 3.58 acres. The section line is a very steep topography. It goes right through the middle of this cabin on the property and through the drain field. It doesn't appear that there are no utilities within the section line right away. The section line highway right away to the north of this property was vacated just a few years ago. And now he's requesting to vacate this to bring his property into compliance.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. So the owners are the Schillers.
Both the Schillings and the Youngs. There's two different lots.
Okay, Dan, I just am continuing to have issues with the applicant being different than the owners. Wouldn't it be more appropriate that the Schillers and the Youngs applied for it and the owners are the Schillers and the Youngs? Is that truly the way it is? Because the way this is completed, somebody else is signing for somebody else. And I'm struggling with that. You know, I've questioned that a lot in the planning and zoning, and here we go again. And I need to understand why it's being completed that way.
Well, our application does require both owners to sign the application.
Have
And they
both
did.
owners. So then why don't you put that on there?
Well, the applicant is Mr. Young, and the only thing I probably should have done was also put Mr. Young as an owner also, because our staff report does show Sam and Suzanne Schiller as the owner, but also William Young should have been
Did
on
they
there.
sign the application?
Yes, they did.
Okay, because,
So then they're part of the applicant too, aren't they?
Yeah.
If they signed the application.
yeah.
Well, the applicant is Mr. Young. He's the one that's doing all the paperwork. The owners
Isn't it the
are,
person who signs it?
well, they signed as the owner, and then our application has a separate area for applicant and owner.
But see, I'm just struggling with this legality here. I don't see how he can be the only one as the applicant when the property is really partially owned by somebody else. I don't get that.
Our building permits actually don't require a landowner to sign it at all. It is signed by just the agent or the applicant. The owner is not even required to sign the
That's what
building
you're
permit.
asking us to do, and as I'm sure in the past I've questioned this, what you're asking us to do is approve something for an applicant when we don't actually have we don't have some way to know that it's for the other person as well, the other owner. And I'm struggling with that, and I guess I need to understand why we can do that legally.
Well, what I can do is work with our state's attorney's office to see if our applications need revision to clarify that all owners sign the application. I can certainly do that and look into that.
Mr. Chair, there's a tremendous amount of difference, Dan, between a building permit application, because the contractor can do that for the person he's gonna build a house or garage or whatever it may be. But when you're talking about a variance or a conditional use permit or planned unit development or any of those, if we've got two pieces of property we're working on, we should have the applicant signing it in one place and both property owners or 10 property owners.
Which we do.
Listed in the other, and it should be right here in this book.
And I can certainly include those in the future.
I think that's what Nancy's asking.
Yeah, because we're being asked to.
And I don't think you have to talk to Jay or anybody else, it's just enter it in there.
I can certainly do that in the future.
Great show, thank you.
So are we concerned about the actual applicant or application form that has been completed and in your office?
The application in the file is signed by both landowners.
Okay, so is it simply what gets transferred into this book? Yep.
Yeah, apparently we don't get the same information that you do, because this isn't the first time I've been questioning this. And I feel like we should get the same information here as what you have on your application.
In the future packets, I will include the applications with the packet.
No, I'm just saying you need to give us the same information. I should not have to question you on that and why the names are different.
Just for my clarification, I'm sitting here listening. My understanding is both owners did sign this application.
However, in here, it doesn't say
Yeah,
that.
okay. But when I first heard you talk, I thought you meant that one of the owners failed to sign and.
I was asking because I do not have that information.
So essentially, rather than a technicality of the process, we're talking about a technicality of communication. And
Yes.
we can rectify that next time.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr.
Anything
Chair,
else?
I would make a motion to allow the vacation of that section line right away as asked by the applicant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second
So
to,
that will be applicants Young and Schiller.
And owners, Young and Schiller.
Yep.
and be sure to dot the i's.
Does that include the condition?
Yes.
Are we all square now? And we do have a motion and a second. The motion is fully understood. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dan. Committee reports. We'll do this alphabetically.
Can we remember how that works?
Let me,
Buskerud?
I don't have any. I was out of town for 10 days, so I can tell you what I did in my vacation.
Would you like
thanks.
No,
You golf?
no, I didn't.
Okay. I think you're next.
Let's see, is that B? Yeah. I've attended the Board of Directors meeting at the Chamber of Commerce, and one thing that they're coming up with their board members is to ask alternating board members to come to the county commission meeting, to the city council meeting, and just have their presence known. They'd like to get up in the, beginning of the meeting or something, just give a minute or two of why they're there and what they're doing. Is there anything they can help the county with or the city when they attend those meetings? And they're not looking to have a big splash. They just want to make their presence known to the community, that they're out there to do whatever they can to help things along, help the process. And so I talked to Holly just a little bit, but probably when they get that process put together, we'll have to put a line item on our agenda to allow them to get up, if that's okay with everybody, and when it comes about.
Is there any concern about them being alternative members or whatever, like the planning and zoning?
Well, maybe we'd have to make sure that they're here every day so we'd have a quorum of the public to get that done. But the next thing is that then you all saw my picture of the B1 that was presented to me at Ellsworth. So that's what I think was a fantastic deal and totally unexpected. Been to military affairs meeting, and basically that's just to get together between the military, the National Guard, and the Air Force and the local community. And we had one 2 weeks ago, and we'll have another one this Thursday. Also, we're having an Ellsworth Task Force meeting in the near future. I'll make a presentation about that for the next meeting.
Commissioner Holloway, you're next.
Yes, I attended the City County Drug and Alcohol Programs Board meeting on September 6th. No, I'm sorry. It was on December 6th. Time does get away from you. December 6th, and they reviewed the various programs that they got going there and some of their successes. I know that we get tied down with a lot of issues here and don't necessarily have time, but I think it'd be interesting at some point in time to have them come in and give us a 15-minute presentation on all of the things that they're doing there, because I think a lot of times not only the board but the public really doesn't realize all that they're doing at that location in providing drug and alcohol services for those people in our community. And they've implemented some new components there. One of them being what they refer to as safe beds. It's those people that are not interested in stopping drinking, where they used to spend a lot of time trying to have counselors talk to them and so on. They're no longer doing that, and but their system does allow for those people to be held there until they sober up and leave. They do have some volunteers who have sobered up, talk to them and try to convince them that they should go through detox and get treatment. So I just, there's just some things happening there that are very, very positive. And so if the board would like, sometime here after we get into the new year, I may ask to have them come in and give about a 15-minute presentation to us.
Mr. Chair, just one thing to go along with that, and Don, I don't believe I've met the new director up there since I've come back on the county commission, and the other one is retired, and so that'd be good.
Okay.
Okay, my committee activity, essentially the longtime administrative assistant in the extension office is retiring, and they went through a process of advertising. They got over 140 applications. They narrowed them down. They were to interview yesterday. I haven't heard whether they were able to select someone. So that we'll find out. Beyond that, I have RC&D and soil conservation on Thursday. And weed board, of course, we know about the weed and pest accomplishments. So that covers mine, and now Commissioner Troutman.
One of the things that I just want to bring up again, because it did occur after the commission meeting last time, the governor did speak to the community about his budget proposals, and part of that budget proposal was to put $2 million more into the mountain pine beetle fight here, and to work with the counties, and that really came directly from the mountain pine beetle working group that the counties and the state and the feds have been a part of, as well as the lumber industry. And I wanted to just mention publicly that when I thanked him for it, one of the things that he said made a difference was that Scott Guffey journeyed down to Pierre to visit with him about this whole issue, and he was very, very impressed with Scott, who is our weed and pest director here at Pennington County, and that he knows what he's doing. He's worked hard to develop a really great program, and he just was very impressed with him. And we have a lot of employees that are like that. We spent all day yesterday going through employee evaluations, and we have really, really great employees who take leadership roles, especially in this community, and that's what I really wanted to recognize. I go to a lot of meetings and stuff, but I just really appreciate that we have good people working here, and I want to thank them.
Thank you. Next item is items from the public. Anyone from the public who wishes to address the commission?
Good morning. There was a word used during the meeting that I'd like to pick up on. That's called predictability. And with that, I'd like to give Commissioner Buskerud a piece of paper.
Oh, no.
If I may.
What's his name?
Thank you.
Who is he?
I don't have copies for the rest of you. When I go in and get copies, it's 25 cents, so Ron, that's on me. That article appeared in the Rapid City Journal last week. It's called Variance. Have you had a chance to look at the article, Ron?
Just in the process.
Okay.
And you are, for the record, please. Would you state your name, please?
I'm George Farabee.
Yeah, it looks like the city of Rapid City is requesting a variance to the water quality and groundwater discharge permit that they have from, on behalf of the Rapid City Wastewater Treatment Plant and directed to the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources.
Are you in favor of that variance?
I don't know enough information to make a decision on it. It depends on how bad things are down there, I guess.
If I applied for a variance for my septic tank, would you be in favor of it?
Depending on what the variance is.
Water quality?
You're out in the country quite a ways that, the only person you're going to be contaminating is yourself and your well, I guess. No, I probably wouldn't, George.
Okay. I have actually two sets of questions. One, as a citizen, should I make objection to the DNR? And the second part of that is, as a member of the West Dakota Water Development District Board, which this falls within, it falls within your jurisdiction as well. Should we as governmental entities be inquiring as to what's going on? Once again, it's water quality variance. Implicit in that is the fact that the water quality that's being discharged is potentially not within EPA limits. And I have one more thing for Commissioner Buskerud. That document clears up a question that was raised a couple of meetings ago about what qualifies as a veteran of the United States Armed Forces. And I believe that Mr. Buskerud can share that document with the rest of the board to assure the rest of the board what that document stands for. Would you please, Ron?
I sure will, and I will recommend you to become a member of the VFW that I'm a member of over here. You're qualified for that, too.
DD Form 214?
Yep. Yeah, I can share it with anybody who wants to see it.
Sure, I'd like to see what he's giving out.
Can I make a copy?
Absolutely.
I will do that.
Subsequent research after the meeting two times ago found out that those folks that prior to 1990 that joined the Army National Guard do not qualify for the state home in Hot Springs. Further, they do not qualify for the Black Hills National Cemetery. And I should make a correction. A couple meetings ago, a committee report was made that Ellsworth Air Force Base has two flights of B-1s.
2 squadrons.
Those are squadrons, not flights.
Mr. Chair, I question what this discussion has to do with our county business, and so if that's the extent of.
Once again, those were committee reports. We have a.
That's the extent of the community public input, then I'd move that we go into item 23.
I'll second.
Mr. Chairman, the suggestion is made that we do not, the public doesn't have a chance to respond or retort to committee reports, and I think that's fallacious. Thank you very much.
We're not here for a debate.
Anybody want to see it? George?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Nice.
We done? Executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Chair, we have a motion and a second to come out of executive session. No, I'm not. You are.
Yes, as the chairman.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.